It was Friday, 4 p.m., or if you prefer, 4 p.m. military time, which we use in law enforcement. At that time on a Friday, government offices are usually pretty quiet, and our office at the Mason County Sheriff's Department was no exception. The shift was ending at 3 p.m., and most of the regular staff had left early to catch up on unfinished work. My captain and senior deputy, Benito Ben Villanueva, had left at noon to spend the weekend with his family in Twin Cities. As for me, I was eagerly awaiting the return of the day shift lieutenant, Deputy Sheriff Christopher Hayes, who was on an important assignment that had been assigned to me earlier in the week. My name is Sean Patrick Quinn Jr., but everyone calls me Pat. I am the newly elected and sworn-in sheriff of Mason County. This day marks the end of my first official week on the job since taking the oath of office on Monday morning. I assigned this task to Chris Hayes immediately after the swearing-in ceremony and originally planned for him to complete it later that day. However, I changed my mind and asked him to postpone the task until today. It is the duty of lieutenants to serve warrants, notices, and official documents upon request. Citizens pay the sheriff $80 for delivering official documents. I considered it money well spent. So this afternoon, I assigned my trusted lieutenant to deliver divorce papers to my soon-to-be ex-wife, Clarissa. I sat in my office, eagerly awaiting his return to find out how it went. At around 4:03 p.m., a very angry Lieutenant Chris Hayes burst into my office. "Next time you decide to get a divorce, Pat, hand those damn papers to that bitch yourself." I guess the delivery didn't go very smoothly? I grinned. "Look at me, Pat," Chris said, pointing to the right side of his face. His entire cheek and right ear were red. "That stupid bitch hit me right in the face." What did she do? I couldn't believe what I had just heard. I didn't stutter. I handed her the damn papers and she hit me in the face. "Oh my God," I burst out laughing. "That's the most fantastic thing I've ever heard. Please, for God's sake, tell me you're not kidding." "No, I'm not kidding," he said, sitting down across from my desk. She walked up to the door and I politely asked if she was Clarissa Marie Quinn. She said yes. I said, "Clarissa Marie Quinn, you have some documents." She completely lost it, got into an argument with me, started yelling at the top of her lungs, and ended up punching me right in the right cheek and ear. You know how much it hurts when you get hit in the ear, Pat? It hurts, bitch. Even if it's a woman doing it, damn it. I'm sorry, I said, trying not to laugh. "I'm not laughing at you getting hit. I'm laughing at this stupid bitch who lost her composure so badly." And then the last thought came to my mind. "Oh God, please, 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 for God's sake, tell me you had a camera on your lapel when all this happened. Please tell me you had the sense to put it on when all this happened." "What, a camera on my lapel?" "Of course I did. You're so stupid." "Oh, I get it. I understand." Now Chris understood everything. That summer and fall, I was effectively acting sheriff while my predecessor, William Bud Roberts, was lame duck and absent. So not only did I campaign to replace Bud as sheriff, but I also managed the day-to-day operations of the entire department. One of my proudest accomplishments was using confiscated drug money to purchase Wolfcam body cameras for every deputy sheriff. The cameras were attached to the lapel of the uniform and provided high-definition 1080p video and crystal-clear audio, recording any incident that a deputy sheriff might encounter. The video was recorded via Bluetooth to a built-in video recorder, which also recorded video and audio from the camera to the deputy sheriff's dashboard. Every department that implemented these cameras saw a significant reduction in complaints from citizens trying to accuse us of harassment or excessive use of force. In fact, complaints still came in, but they were usually withdrawn once the offenders or their families saw the video of the incident. The cameras were about half the size of my palm. At first, my deputies had mixed feelings about the cameras. On the one hand, they thought they were being watched by Big Brother. But to date, the video recordings have corroborated at least 6 accounts from my assistants about various incidents that had been the subject of complaints from citizens. All 6 complaints were withdrawn when the parties, and of course their lawyers, were given the opportunity to view the video recordings. I was thrilled because I really wanted to see the video. I hope it will give me all the evidence and momentum I need to go through with my plans to divorce my cheating wife and dictate the terms of the divorce on my terms. Chris retrieved the video from his patrol car and downloaded it to my laptop. The video began with Chris walking slowly toward the steps leading up to the porch of my farmhouse. He rang the doorbell twice before Clarissa finally appeared. When she opened the door, her face showed surprise at the sight of the deputy sheriff. "Yes, how can I help you?" she asked. "Are you Clarissa Marie Quinn?" Chris asked. "Oh, come on, you know who I am. What's this about?" "Ma'am, I'm Deputy Lieutenant Chris Hayes," he said, handing her a manila envelope. "Mrs. Quinn, you are being served with a formal notice." "Are you kidding me?" "No, ma'am. You have been served with a subpoena." "Oh my God, I can't believe this. I can't believe that brainless son of a bitch sent one of his damn assistants to do this." "Good afternoon, ma'am," Chris said, turning and walking back to his patrol car. "Hey, damn it." Clarissa continued to push Chris, shoving him in the back. "I'm not done with you yet. Tell that bastard to better come home for dinner. I won't accept this. Tell him to get his ass home so we can discuss this." "Ma'am, you need to calm down. I won't tolerate you touching me in an aggressive manner." Chris tried his best to remain calm. "Or what? What the hell are you going to do? You're just a deputy. You're nobody." "Ma'am, I'm warning you. You need to step away and calm down." "Oh, now you're telling me what to do? I'm not going to listen to your orders. I'm still the sheriff's wife, you jerk." She moved toward him, waving the envelope as if she were going to hit him. "Tell Patrick to be home by 6 o'clock. He'd better not go to his whore's house on the north side." "Madam, calm down now." Chris reached out and put his hand on Clarissa's shoulder to keep her from coming closer. But instead of calming her down, it made Clarissa furious. "Get your damn hands off me, you bastard!" she screamed, pushing his hand away. "Don't you ever touch me again." And then, smack, Clarissa hit poor Chris right across the right side of his face. "And tell that bastard to get his ass home right now," she yelled, turning around and walking back into the house. "Oh my God, that was amazing," I said, bursting into hysterical laughter again. "But my God, Chris, why didn't you arrest her on the spot?" "To tell you the truth," Chris said, "I was stunned and didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure if I should drag her away in handcuffs or just let you deal with that stupid bitch. So I came back here and decided to dump the problem on you." "Oh, no, 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 no way," I muttered. "You're going back there and arresting that dumb bitch for assaulting a law enforcement officer? That's what you're going to do." "Are you kidding, Pat? Are you seriously going to drag me into this mess?" "Dude, you're already in this up to your neck. Besides, don't you want a little revenge? Wouldn't it be great if you took her to jail yourself? Write her up in the log? Draw her? In other words, humiliate her to death for hitting you in the face?" Chris thought for a minute and sighed. "You certainly make a convincing argument, I can't argue with that. But I'm not going alone. If she pisses me off again, I'll beat the crap out of her and maybe even electrocute her. I can't help thinking that if I beat up the wife of the sheriff, it'll be a black mark on my brilliant law enforcement career. Pat, you do realize this is likely to end up in the papers and all that, right?" "Don't worry about that. I'll take care of it. And she can't stay here, you know that. Our jail is full. She'll have to go to Choctaw County tonight, and that's a 2-hour drive in a van. That's not our problem. She made her bed, and she made more than one. Now she has to lie in it." "So are you sending someone with me or what?" Chris asked. "Who's the lieutenant on duty?" I asked. "Angel Rarison." "Great. Have Angel and one of her deputies meet you. Show some force. That won't scare your kids, Pat?" "No. They're spending the weekend with the St. Matthew Youth Group. They're going to Twin Cities, staying at a hotel with an indoor water park, and hanging out at the Mall of America. They'll probably spend most of the weekend in the pool or at Camp Snoopy." "I thought that was called Nickelodeon or something now," Chris said, raising his hat. "Yeah, you're probably right. But everyone I know still calls it Camp Snoopy." "All right, Pat. Time to go arrest your stupid wife." "Good luck. Call me when you're done." Next chapter. Of course, Clarissa's arrest didn't go smoothly, at least not for Clarissa. She made such a fuss that she almost got charged with resisting arrest. The video shows Lieutenant Angel Rarison, an energetic woman only 5'5" tall, literally pushing Clarissa out onto the porch of our house, while another deputy, Brad Lowe, handcuffs her and reads her rights. All the while, Clarissa was hysterically crying and yelling at Brad, Angel, and Chris, threatening to sue them for unlawful arrest, excessive use of force, and everything else she could think of. But all of this was captured on video in full 1080p resolution with perfect sound, which recorded every curse word, sneeze, and snort. Add to that the video of her being handed her documents, and no judge could decide that the 3 sheriff's deputies did not behave in a completely professional manner throughout. By 6:30 p.m., Clarissa had been photographed, registered, fingerprinted, and placed in the Mason County Jail. By 7 o'clock p.m., she was dressed in red and white striped prison garb and the same red sneakers. She cried hysterically as she was led to the van that would take her south for nearly 2 hours to the Choctaw County Jail, near Cherokee Flats. The Choctaw County Jail can hold 240 inmates, and our jail can hold no more than 40. So being at full capacity meant that our jail was literally bursting at the seams. It was a situation that I, as sheriff, had to fix, and it was one of my top priorities. Since the magistrate doesn't work on weekends, except for emergency warrants, Clarissa could now spend most of the next 72 hours sitting and thinking about what she had done. A quick phone call to my colleague in Choctaw County, Sheriff Garrett Myers, secured Clarissa a private cell, away from other inmates who could harm her while she was there. Sheriff Myers also made sure that his officers kept a close eye on Clarissa and provided her with strict security. She would be taken to prison under an assumed name so that no one would know where she was or who she was. Chris Hayes sent me a photo of Clarissa on my smartphone. She looked miserable in every way. At the same time, she remained a very beautiful woman in every way. But the photo did not show a young, energetic, and confident woman. It was a photo of a woman who had hit rock bottom and was now beginning to truly realize the consequences of her actions over the past 2 years. Her eyes showed horror and fear of humanity, and her face showed hopelessness and despair. In fact, her face reminded me of many photos of millions of women and men who, throughout history, had been imprisoned in thousands of prisons across our country. Clarissa had never worn a criminal's mask in her life, but I couldn't help noticing how the registration photo immediately branded her as a common crook. Ironically, that photo, with all its grimness, fit the image Clarissa had become after she started her affair with Bud Roberts. It's funny how a simple photo can remind us that the line between the cream of society and its dregs is really very thin. I had planned to spend most of the weekend with my new wife, Shannon Sullivan, and her wonderful daughter, Bridget. After Clarissa's arrest, I had to stop by the station to feed the horses and take care of a few things. I didn't get to Shannon's house until 7:30 p.m. Around the same time, Chris Hayes sent me the photo of Clarissa. I walked into Shannon's small but cozy apartment and was greeted by the smell of home cooking, which immediately reminded me of the meals my dear grandmother used to make. Shannon and Bridget had come home shortly before me, as Shannon's shift in the intensive care unit at Holy Family Medical Center didn't end until 7 o'clock p.m., after which she had to pick up Bridget from her friend's house where she went after school. On days when Shannon was at work, "Patrick!" Bridget shouted as she ran out of the kitchen. "Hi, Bridget," I said, giving her a big hug. "How are my two favorite girls in the world?" "Great. I've been waiting for you all day, Patrick. Do you want to see my bug collection?" "I'd love to, sweetheart, but why are you collecting bugs in the middle of winter?" "Mom and I caught them last fall, silly." "Her teacher let all the little bugs out and finally sent them home today," Shannon explained, pulling her in for a kiss. Her voice softened, and she asked with a smile, "How are you, handsome?" "Much better," I replied after a juicy kiss. "Bad day at work? I'll explain after dinner." "Okay," she said with a worried look. For the next 20 minutes, Bridget told me about her bug collection and her day at school, until Shannon set a huge plate of meatballs and mashed potatoes on the table. I couldn't believe she had managed to cook such a delicious meal so quickly. It turned out that Shannon liked to cook 5 or 6 full meals on the weekend and then put them in the freezer to take out and reheat in the oven later. I could only hope that things ran as efficiently at the sheriff's office as they did at Shannon's house. It just confirmed that I had indeed chosen a winner. After dinner, I helped Shannon and Bridget clear the table and wash most of the dishes. It was the least I could do after such a great dinner. We played a board game called Bonkers, which Bridget absolutely loves. Then it was time for Bridget to go to bed, and I read her a story. Today it was Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. When Bridget went to bed, I met Shannon in the living room where she was changing into her pajama pants and a Minnesota State University t-shirt and sipping juice. "No wine tonight?" I asked. Not tonight, honey. I'm working tomorrow, and I promised Mindy Sutherland I'd pick her up at 6. Mom's coming early to pick up the baby and take her to the ranch for the day." "I see. I'm sure she'll have fun. But you won't turn down a glass?" "I wouldn't mind," I replied, heading to the kitchen and pouring myself a large glass of Chardonnay. I'm not enough of a wine connoisseur to know which wine to drink and when, before, during, or after a meal, But Shannon's peach Chardonnay was good. It had alcohol in it, and there was plenty of it for my simple taste. I sat down next to Shannon on the couch and exhaled, finally letting go of all the stress of the day and my first week as sheriff. That was the sigh of a man who had had a hard day. I thought everything was going pretty well so far. Mostly, I said, taking a big sip of wine. However, things changed a bit this afternoon. How so? I looked into Shannon's beautiful eyes and said, Chris Hayes handed Clarissa the papers this afternoon. Shannon tensed up and became very concerned. Oh my God, it finally happened. Are you really getting divorced? She grabbed my left hand, and I could feel it shaking. It's really happening. We're really going to be together. Tears welled up in her eyes, and one rolled down her right cheek. Yes, we will, baby, I said, squeezing her hand tightly. How did she take it? I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. It was like a train wreck. Like what? What happened? You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Sean Patrick Quinn. Don't do this to me. You can't start a story like that and not finish it. It's not fair, she reproached me. Okay, you're right. My lieutenant, Chris Hayes, who works the day shift, received some documents that needed to be turned in this afternoon. When he handed her the documents, Clarissa went berserk. She called him names, cursed at him, basically everything you can imagine. And then, I paused, she hit him right in the face. Shannon gasped in shock. Oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. No, I'm not kidding. You should have seen how upset Chris was when he got back. He was beside himself. And then what happened? Well, if you want to know, I began. Oh, don't tease me. Tell me what happened next. I sent Chris home with the evening shift Lieutenant Angel Rayerson and another deputy named Brad Lowe. I ordered them to arrest Clarissa for assaulting a law enforcement officer. Another shocked gasp. My God, you're kidding, right? What are you thinking? What do you mean? What am I thinking? I said, somewhat stunned. Clarissa attacked one of my deputies. She's no different from anyone else. It was a completely unprovoked attack. I know, but technically she's still your wife. I understand she did a lot of terrible things to you, but arrest her? This isn't revenge for all the shit she, Bud, and Marion Lawson did. It's a direct result of her getting so angry that she attacked one of my assistants to get to me. Regardless of how she or I feel about all this, there's no excuse for her hitting one of my assistants. I also need to make it clear to Chris and my assistants that I won't tolerate any insults from them or directed at them. I know, Shannon said, calming down a little. It's just so shocking that I'm having a hard time understanding everything that's going on. I know, baby, I know, I said, squeezing her hand tightly. How do you think this will affect everything? Well, I said, thinking, the only thing that comes to mind is that maybe Clarissa will be more open to divorce. Maybe this turn of events will help me convince her that a mutual divorce is the right thing to do. Shannon's face fell again. My God, Patrick, I don't want to sound like a horrible bitch. But you arrested her for that reason? To make her agree to a divorce? No, I said firmly, shaking my head. Absolutely not. Get that idea out of your head. I would never do anything like that. That would lower me to Clarissa and Bad Roberts' level. Make no mistake. Clarissa broke the law by attacking one of my assistants. That's why she's spending the weekend in jail. I'll do everything in my power to help her get out of this situation with the least amount of legal damage. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't going to use this to help us start our life together on the best possible footing. And if that means using her arrest to simplify the divorce process, then so be it. I promise I won't use this to undermine Clarissa during the divorce, only to help her come to her senses, accept the inevitable, and make things as easy as possible for the boys. You're right, Patrick. I should have known better. You're not that kind of person. I'm sorry I brought it up. Shannon leaned over and kissed me apologetically. Don't apologize, I said. I'm counting on you to help me keep my sanity. This job has clearly gone to Bad Robert's head, and I'm counting on you to be my anchor, baby. Well, Shannon said, smiling slyly and placing her wine glass on the table, I'm not very good at being an anchor, but I'd be very grateful if you'd, so to speak, moor your ship in my little harbor. I started giggling uncontrollably. What did you just say, my love? Damn it, Patrick. I'm trying to talk and hint a little. Hey, I love dirty talk as much as the next guy, but you're going to have to try a little harder. So, Sheriff, are we going to do this or what? Oh, you can be sure we will, I said as she took my hand and led me to the bedroom. The next 2 hours flew by in a blur. Next chapter. The next morning, Shannon left for work at 5:15 a.m., not even bothering to take a shower before she left. Of course, any normal man wouldn't have noticed the difference. In most cases, all we need is a little deodorant and a change of clothes. Besides, Shannon was a natural beauty who didn't need makeup anyway. I rushed out of the house as soon as Shannon's mother, Suzanne, arrived to stay with Bridget until she got out of bed. I returned to the farm to do some chores and plan the rest of my day. My divorce lawyer was a fierce woman named Danielle Nichols. She was the most formidable divorce lawyer in town, and Clarissa would probably have gone to her if I hadn't gone to Danielle first. I know this because Clarissa called Danielle shortly after I hired her, as she wanted to have a lawyer just in case she couldn't talk me out of the divorce. All of this happened last fall, before I served Clarissa with the papers. Danielle was at her office at Brown, Graham, Norris, Slater, and Nichols, although the firm itself was closed for the weekend. I decided that, given the events of the previous day, I should call Danielle ahead of time. As expected, Danielle was seething with rage as she discussed what she could do to Clarissa in the divorce proceedings after she foolishly hit one of my assistants. Looking into the eyes of Danielle Nichols' attorney, I felt as if I were looking into the eyes of Satan himself. I could only be glad that she was on my side. Danielle was beautiful in her passionate and promiscuous manner, but at the same time, she had the aura of a black widow who would most likely kill and eat you as soon as the copulation was over. About 15 minutes into our consultation, my cell phone rang. It was a number that probably shouldn't have been in my phone, but I had saved it anyway. The display read Caroline Bennett. "Hi, Caroline," I said, answering the call. "Patrick, thank God I got through. Do you know what's going on with Clarissa? She called me this morning and said she was in jail in Cherokee Flats and that you were responsible for her being there." "I'm sorry," I said to Danielle, covering the phone with both hands. "I have to take this. I'll be back in a few minutes." "I'm so sorry." "No, don't be sorry," Danielle said. "Stay here. I'll run to the break room and see if there's any coffee in this godforsaken place." When Danielle left the room, I continued. "Caroline, the truth is that Clarissa is really in jail in Cherokee Flats. There wasn't room for additional prisoners here in Red River Falls, so they sent her somewhere else." "My God, Patrick. What could she have done to deserve jail?" "Caroline, at the risk of our special friendship, let me be completely frank. I did not have Clarissa arrested out of malice. I followed all the proper procedures for filing for divorce and contacted the sheriff's department. I paid all the necessary fees as any normal citizen would do. I did this to avoid an unpleasant confrontation between Clarissa and me. Instead, Clarissa started an argument with one of my assistants, during which she became aggressive, hostile, and struck my assistant in the face. No, 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 Patrick. You're wrong. Clarissa can be quick-tempered at times, maybe even very quick-tempered, but my daughter would never intentionally strike a law enforcement officer. I just can't believe that. Your employee must have made a mistake or blown this out of proportion." "I hate to tell you this, Caroline," I said with a sigh, "but the entire incident was caught on video. Cameras and photos don't show the whole picture, Patrick." "True, but in this case, it's very simple. All my assistants now carry small cameras that record everything in high definition. In this particular case, it could have been filmed with a TV camera because the difference isn't that big. You'll understand when you see the video, Caroline." I heard Caroline sniffle and try to suppress a sob. "Please, Patrick. If our special friendship means anything to you, promise me you'll do everything in your power to help her. I'm begging you. For her sake and for the sake of my grandchildren." "Caroline," I said, "rest assured that I will do everything in my power to help her. I promise you. I will see her soon, and I assure you that I will get her out on bail no later than first thing Monday morning. I also promise you that this weekend will be the last time she sees a prison cell." "Thank you, Patrick. That means a lot to me." "You're welcome, Caroline." "Oh, and Patrick." "Yes, Caroline?" She paused. "Never forget how much you mean to me, Patrick. I know you have a new love in your life. I can only hope and pray that she treats you the way I would have treated you if you were mine. The way you deserve to be treated." Now it was my turn to search for words. "I appreciate that, Caroline, and never forget how much you mean to me. Goodbye, Patrick. Talk to you soon. I'll be looking forward to it." And she hung up. It took me a few minutes to recover from my conversation with Caroline. There was something about her that bound me to her for life. I was damn glad that Shannon was now in my life. To be honest, There weren't many women in this world who could keep me from running away and spending time with Caroline if she wanted me to. I was thinking about this when Danielle returned to her office with 2 cups of fresh coffee and placed one of them on the table in front of me. I could easily imagine Danielle doing this with me or any other man. She was, as she herself said, happily divorced. Danielle had been married to Karsten Brown, who was Brown, in Brown, Graham, Norris, Slater, and Nichols, and who himself had been happily married to another woman until Danielle joined the firm. Danielle had been a paralegal at the firm until Karsten Brown divorced. She then became a partner in the firm shortly after becoming Karsten Brown's mistress. From the perspective of the gossip columnists, it was all scandalous and juicy, confirming the old saying, "There's not much going on in a small town, but what you hear more than makes up for it." "So," said Danielle, settling into a high-backed chair, "let's figure out how to deal with that bitch, your wife." Danielle thought I was crazy because I wanted to negotiate a fair divorce, and she was sure she could use Clarissa's arrest to get everything she wanted from me, including additional prison. Time for her. To tell the truth, all I wanted from Clarissa was a quick and easy divorce. I just wanted to split everything we had in half and share custody of the boys. I wanted the boys to continue living with me on the farm, and Clarissa could visit them after school and every weekend, as well as leave them with me for most of the summer months. Personally, I think Daniel just wanted to watch Clarissa squirm like a worm on a hook. As for me, I was determined to divorce her while preserving her honor, at least in the eyes of our sons. I hoped that would be enough to knock the fighting spirit out of her. I left Daniel's office shortly after 9. I had to stop by another lawyer's office. I drove to the west side of town, to a posh neighborhood called Elk Run Heights. It was one of the newest residential developments in Red River Falls, filled with luxurious mansions where the people who held high positions in Red River Falls lived. The complex included the Fox Run Golf and Country Club, and almost every house had its own golf course. Most residents could swim in their pools and then sunbathe on the sandy beaches, which completely eliminated the need to drive to the beach, at least in the summer. At 5945 Elk Run Drive lived a certain Marion Lawson Esquire, also known as the Mason County District Attorney. Needless to say, Marion wasn't expecting me today. It was the middle of January, and I had no intention of interrupting his meeting with the 4 of us. As it turned out, Marion preferred a threesome, especially with my wife and Bud Roberts. I walked up to the entrance of the stately brick house and rang the doorbell. A few minutes later, Marion himself appeared. "God," he said when he saw me, "my weekend was off to such a good start." "I'm glad to see you too, Marion." Lawson was standing in the doorway. "Well, aren't you going to invite me in?" "Only if I have a good reason," he muttered. "Oh, I have business to discuss, I assure you." "Does it concern me in any way?" "Marion," I said with a slight reproach in my voice, "everything I do concerns you in one way or another." Marion just rolled his eyes and opened the door to let me in. "My office is on the left, and take off your damn shoes so you don't ruin my wooden floor. We just cleaned, stained, and varnished it." "Oh, looks like we're going to be here for a while." "Don't even think about it. You won't last long enough to watch the playoffs, and all the beer in the fridge is labeled with your name, not mine. Come on, the Vikings were out a long time ago." "Damn it, Pat, the Vikings were out after the preseason, for God's sake," he grumbled. "How can you watch those losers?" Hey, easy there. Hating my team is hating me," I replied. "Do you really want me to answer that question, Quinn?" "Probably not," I agreed. We entered the house and headed for Marion's study when his wife, Patty Jean, spotted us from the huge open kitchen. Whatever she was cooking smelled fantastic, and my rumbling stomach reminded me that I hadn't eaten yet. "Oh, hello, Sheriff. What brings you here today?" Patty called from the kitchen. Before I could answer, Marion interrupted me. "He'll be out in a minute. We're in the study. We've got important business to attend to, so don't disturb us." Patty Jean looked completely crushed by her husband's rebuke, but she brightened again when I said, "Good to see you, Patty. Whatever you're cooking smells delicious, dear." "Thanks, Patrick. We'd love to have you over for dinner." "I'd love to come. I promised to bring my fiancé, a bunch of corny jokes, and a big appetite." Patty Jean laughed, and Marion practically dragged me into his office, closed the door behind us, and locked it. "By the way, you're not going to dinner," he said reproachfully, seating me in a chair in front of his huge oak desk. "But Patty Jean just invited me, Marion. It would be rude to decline." Marion shot me a disapproving look and sat down in an equally tasteless chair. Did you come here just to annoy me, Pat? Or did you really need to talk to me? Tell Patty she doesn't need to react that way. I'm a simple man with simple tastes. Damn it, Sheriff. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and gravy. I've always loved home cooking, especially in the winter. I'm sure Patty can work wonders. I guess her cooking skills help you keep your girlish figure, Marion. I grinned. I'm warning you, Pat. My deputies arrested my wife last night. Lawson's jaw nearly dropped to the floor. What? Are you kidding? No, I'm not kidding. She was served divorce papers yesterday, and she attacked one of my deputies. Lawson stared at me with wide eyes. You know what? Phil Robertson said it best. You're a special kind of idiot, Pat. My God, who the hell did the people of this county elect sheriff? They elected a man who doesn't believe he or his family is above the law. Bullshit. What did she do? Bump into him as he was walking by? No. She got angry, took it out on my deputy sheriff, and hit him right in the face. We have video footage. Who? Who what? I asked, confused. Who was the deputy sheriff who was dealing with her? Lieutenant Chris Hayes. Oh God, Lawson said, making a sour face and shaking his head. I see. If that damn idiot isn't doing anything deserving of a slap right now, then, as smart people say, it's only a matter of time. He'll probably get slapped by his tattooed, drug-addicted whore of a wife. I shifted in my chair, ready to defend Chris and Tanya. I assure you, Lieutenant Hayes is not an idiot, and neither is his new wife. In fact, she probably has the highest IQ in Mason County, and the only thing on her record is a simple drug charge in Massachusetts. Are you kidding me? You let your damn assistant marry that bitch? I know for a fact that she sells a ton of marijuana in her damn store up north. Repairing and selling computers and old records, as you know, doesn't bring in a penny. Actually, it does, Marion, I corrected her. It's true that Tanya still repairs, upgrades, and sells computers and old records, but on my recommendation, she's also landed several contracts in town where she works as a network administrator and analyst for several companies. All of her clients are thrilled with her work. She practically outshines all the other IT professionals in Red River Falls. I swear to God, Pat, if I find out you're covering up her illegal activities, I'll… What will you do? I interrupted her. Don't forget that I know what kind of filth you keep on your home computer, Marion, I lectured her. Marion froze. After a few tense moments, he said, You didn't come here to talk about Hayes and his whore. What do you want, Pat? Like I said, my wife is in jail for assaulting Hayes. I want you to drop all charges until I tell you to. That's my right, Pat. It's my decision, not yours. No, not you. Remind you of your dirty hobby? Damn it, Pat, Lawson groaned. You know I'm the damn district attorney. At some point, you're going to have to drop this nonsense and let me do my job. I understand, but not now. Just don't press charges until I tell you to. If anyone asks you about it, which they shouldn't, just say the investigation is ongoing and you'll make a statement to the public when it's complete. How the hell are you going to make sure people don't find out about her? She's been taken to Choctaw County Jail under an assumed name. Garrett Myers is her friend. He's looking out for her. Myers, the Choctaw County Sheriff? Didn't that damn old bonehead move on a few months ago? Yes, he did, I replied, embarrassed. However, in his defense, it was an accident in the far west of his county during a heavy snowstorm, and the body was almost completely hidden by a snowdrift. The state patrol was supposed to mark the spot where the body was found. Yes, that must have been very comforting to the family. I'm sure the poor undertaker who had to deal with the body was very grateful too. Tell me again, how far did he drag the body under his Tahoe before he realized what the hell was going on? Somewhere between 20 and 25 feet. Listen, we're driving sideways. Are you going to talk to me or not? Okay, Lawson said, waving me off and rubbing his face. I'm not pressing charges. In fact, I'll pretend I don't know anything until late Monday night or until you decide to press charges. I'm guessing this is all a ploy to trick Clarissa into divorcing you? No? Well, not exactly. Okay, maybe a little, but only to get her to agree to the divorce. The terms I'm offering, not that it's any of your business, but the terms I'm offering are damn good. I don't want a cheater. She is the mother of my children, after all. Pat, Lawson said. He paused for a few seconds. Can I ask you something personal? God, Marion, are we having a bonding session? I doubt it, he muttered. Too bad. All right, go ahead. I said. What's going to happen to Clarissa when this is over? I squinted and my stomach clenched. What do you mean? Well, he began, I mean, Clarissa will obviously be available again. And I, kind of, maybe wanted to see if you'd be open to… Don't even think about it, I growled. What's the problem, Pat? You're obviously not going to be with her. You can see that my marriage is falling apart. I promise I'll be good to your boys. I stood up, slammed both hands on Lawson's desk, looked him straight in the eye, and growled, My boys already have a father. And my damn future ex-wife is off limits to you, Marion. Do you understand? Do you understand? Lawson just sighed, raised his hands in surrender, and said, All right, it'll be your way. But if I help you with this, I consider us even, Pat. I want you to delete those damn photos from the file on my server, and I want those damn hidden photos off the internet. Deal? Let me explain something, Marion. You and Bud Roberts entertained my wife as a threesome. You even had the nerve to tell me about it and try to humiliate me. You know what? We're not equals. Not in terms of how much, damn. We drink. We won't be equals for a very long time, if ever. I stood up, walked over to Marion's office door, and opened it. Turning the handle, I took one last look at Marion and said, And those damn pictures are staying right where they are. Next chapter. I spent the night at the farm alone, without Shannon, even though I really wanted to stay with her. Who the hell wouldn't want to spend the night making love to this incredible woman and her amazing body? But I decided to spend it alone and think through a few more details of my plan for the upcoming divorce. The next morning, I skipped Sunday Mass, and by 9 o'clock I was sitting in my old 2010 Ford Expedition. I got on Highway 120 and headed south toward Cherokee Flats. The drive took about 2 hours and the road was fairly empty. The speed limit was 65 miles per hour, so I drove fast and steady. The Choctaw County Jail was located in the northern part of Cherokee Flats. It was a new building that housed the jail, the sheriff's offices, and even a courtroom that served as an auxiliary room for the courtroom in the county courthouse. The jail itself was quite impressive and much larger than the jail in Mason County, which was located on the roof of the county courthouse. It had a fairly large exercise yard surrounded by 3 separate rings of chain-link fencing, each surrounded by 3 rows of razor-sharp barbed wire. Woe betide anyone who was foolish enough to try to climb over them, let alone anyone who was brave enough to do so even 3 times. The Choctaw County Jail differed from the Mason County Jail in another important way: the visiting room. In both prisons, visits were only allowed for low-risk inmates. But while visitors at the Mason County Jail could see the inmates face-to-face, the Choctaw County Jail used a video system that allowed visitors to see the inmates only on a closed-circuit television screen. The visiting room was across the street from the prison itself, and visitors and inmates were never closer than 300 feet apart. However, if you were a sitting sheriff whose wife was incarcerated, and you were friends with the sheriff of the prison where she was being held, an exception could be made. Hi, Pat. Sheriff Garrett Myers greeted me in his office. He had been the sheriff of Choctaw County for almost 20 years. Garrett was in his 60s with thick gray hair styled into a perfect comb-over, but he was in great shape for his age. How was your first week on the job? Everything was fine until Friday, Garrett. I'm sure it was. I want you to know that we've been watching her closely the entire time she's been here. No one knows she's here. No one has been looking for her or asking about her. She made only one phone call, and I believe it was to her mother. Yes, I spoke with her mother. She knows. Follow me, Pat. We'll go right over there. Although regular meetings are only conducted via video link, we have to allow attorneys to meet with their clients in private. So there's a separate room down this hallway where you can meet with your wife. Thanks, Garrett. I really appreciate it. You're welcome, Pat. And of course, stay here as long as you need to. Thanks again, Sheriff. I was led into a small room measuring 8 by 8 feet, with a small metal table and 2 metal stools firmly attached to the floor, presumably to prevent inmates from throwing them at their lawyers. There were no audio or video communications in the room to preserve attorney-client privilege. Before entering the jail, I also surrendered my personal weapon, which was also checked and scanned. I waited there for about 5 minutes before the door opened. I stood up when Clarissa was brought into the room in shackles, including handcuffs, leg irons, and a chain that wrapped around her waist, attached her hands to her body, and connected to the leg irons. This was done to prevent inmates from attacking correctional officers and to make escape virtually impossible. A tall, athletic African-American prison guard led Clarissa to a stool and the edge of the table opposite me. As soon as she sat down, her leg irons were attached to a hook in the floor and her handcuffs to a hook on the edge of the table, further restricting her movement. Clarissa looked terrible, to say the least. Her eyes were swollen and red, and it was obvious that she had been crying non-stop since her arrival. Her hair was tangled and disheveled, and she clearly needed a shower. She didn't look at me, struggling to hold back her tears. How are you, Clarissa? It was a stupid question, but it was the only one that came to mind. How do you think I am? She whispered, barely audible. I understand how you feel. No, you don't, she said, unable to hold back her tears. How could you understand? How could you do this to me, Patrick? I leaned toward her and said, I didn't do this, Clarissa. You're here because you attacked one of my assistants. I'm sorry, she said, sobbing and sniffling. I was upset because I thought he had come to tell me something had happened to you. That's not true, Clarissa, and you know it. You know perfectly well how these things work. Damn it, you've been through this before, remember? You knew perfectly well that Chris Hayes wasn't there. I swear to God, Patrick, that's what I thought. I don't care what your assistant told you, she sobbed, still unable to look me in the eye. No, Clarissa, you don't know. I'm not lying. I have it all on video. How could you see anything? His car was parked in the driveway, Patrick. It's my word against his. Clarissa, a few months ago, we bought small cameras that the sheriff's deputies wear on their uniforms, like walkie-talkies. The cameras filmed and recorded everything that happened. Chris Hayes approached you, showed you his badge, and you followed him to his car. You deliberately followed him, acted aggressively, and provoked him the entire time. He reached out to stop you from approaching him, and then you struck Chris on the right side of his face with your left hand. It's all on my phone, see? I took out my smartphone, which Garrett had allowed me to bring with me. I opened the video and played it. Clarissa refused to look at my phone at first, believing until the last second that it couldn't have been caught on camera. But as soon as she heard her own voice, unmistakable and crystal clear, she immediately stopped crying and froze, staring at the video, too shocked to say anything. When the video ended, Clarissa turned away from me again, but this time out of shame. Patrick, what's going to happen to me? Well, I said, putting the phone back in my pocket, that's up to you. Right now, you're facing charges of assault, or more specifically, assault on a police officer. That's considered a felony. Theoretically, you're looking at 2 to 5 years in prison. Oh, God, she whispered. Please tell me you'll help me, Patrick. I'll help you, Clarissa, but you have to help me too. What do you want me to do? I want you to sign the divorce papers. I want you to take them, sign them, and make this whole process as smooth and painless as possible for us, for Nick, and for Jake. So that's what this is about? You had me arrested to get what you wanted in the divorce? You son of a bitch! She burst into tears again and gasped for breath, trying to pull herself together and control her breathing. No, Clarissa, don't be mistaken. That's not why you're in jail. You could have just taken the papers and gotten mad when we talked again. Instead, you decided to jump off a roof and go straight to jail. It was your attack on my partner that got you here, not me. If you're right about anything, make sure you're right about that. Then how will helping me with the divorce help me? I'll help you get the charges reduced, so you only serve the time you've already served. Or if I'm really lucky, I can convince Deputy Hayes to drop the case altogether. But I'll only stick up for you if you agree to make our divorce as painless as possible. Do you agree, Clarissa? She looked up at the ceiling in despair. Do I have a choice? The choice is simple. You can help yourself or you can't. But I don't want a divorce, Patrick. How many times do I have to say it? I don't want a divorce. I don't want to break up our family. I want our family to stay together. Clarissa, do you remember what we talked about before the wedding? Remember what we said would happen if one of us cheated on the other? Tears streamed down her cheeks again as she closed her eyes, remembering our long-ago conversation. We always said that cheating in marriage was grounds for ending the relationship. You wouldn't put up with it from me, and I wasn't going to put up with it from you. We always said we could handle anything except cheating. But I was wrong, Patrick. I think we can get through this if we work at it. I know I want to work at it. I want to find a way for us to love each other again the way we did when we first fell in love. I want us to feel special again. I want to feel that you love me and love me the way you used to, Patrick. You know what, Clarissa? You know what I hear? I hear you saying I a lot. In other words, it's all about you. This whole sad story has been about you. It's all about you and what you want. You know what I haven't heard you say? I haven't heard you say, I'm sorry, Patrick. I'm sorry for the hell I've put you through these past 2 years. I'm sorry for the pain, suffering, and humiliation I've caused you. I've never heard you say that, Clarissa. And if you say it now, it won't mean anything because you're only saying it because you want to get out of here and out of a difficult situation. There is no easy solution here. There is no easy way out. But I'm sorry, Patrick. I'm sorry I didn't say it before, but I know we're both stronger than we think. I've seen a new side of you, Patrick. I admit I took you for granted, but now I see how strong you are. I've seen you fight. And I know you can fight for our marriage just as hard if you really want to, she pleaded. But I don't want to, Clarissa. I don't want to fight anymore. I just want it to end. You have no idea what you've done to me. When I look at you, all I see is what was once mine, but was taken away from me. If we ever tried to make love, I'd only think about Bud Roberts or any other man you've been with. And I'd torture myself with thoughts that you want to be with him instead of me. I've always wondered if I'm strong enough or good enough in bed to satisfy you. I've even wondered if you think I'm a good father to our boys. I can't live like this for the rest of my life, Clarissa. I just can't. Clarissa sat down and began to cry quietly. I hoped it was because she finally realized what she had done to me, to our marriage, and to our family. But I also had no illusions that these were tears of remorse for lost opportunities. Please try, Patrick. I beg you. I can't, Clarissa, I said, feeling tears welling up in my eyes and a lump forming in my throat. There's too much to overcome. I'll never be able to forget what you and Bud Roberts did. I know myself well enough to understand what I can and can't handle. You almost took my family and my freedom away from me, Clarissa. You can't get that back. Just sign the papers. Sign the papers and I'll do everything I can to help you get out of this mess, or at least make it less terrible. If you really love me or care about me, please do this for me. You owe me that much. Clarissa buried her face in her hands and sobbed for almost 5 minutes straight. Finally, she gathered her strength, wiped her tears as best she could, took the pen from me, signed the divorce papers, and agreed to all my terms. I paid Clarissa half of my share of the farm and divided our savings in half. I would continue to insure her until she found a suitable job where she could insure herself, or for 1 year, whichever came first. I would help Clarissa find suitable housing that could serve as a second home for the boys, as the farm would remain their primary residence. I would also pay her annual rent to help her get on her feet and continue to pay her Explorer loan until it was paid off. I would also pay her a cell phone bill for at least a year. My lawyer, Daniel Nichols, thought I was crazy for agreeing to such terms. In fact, I probably was crazy. Hell, Clarissa's mother, Caroline, was now deeply involved in a relationship with a man named Martin Belmond, who was a multimillionaire. I had no doubt that Clarissa's mother would do whatever it took to help her daughter. I was doing all of this because I wanted to be sure that Clarissa would treat me fairly so she couldn't accuse me of trying to cheat her. If I had used her imprisonment as leverage, someone might have thought I was being a jerk. But if things had turned out differently, and Clarissa and Bud Roberts had gotten their way, things would have turned out much worse for me than I could have imagined. With cops in prison, anything can happen. However, I had a little surprise for Clarissa. I convinced the magistrate, Judge Hannah Bergen, to release Clarissa on her own recognizance. This was very unusual, especially since I had to call the magistrate and visit her to sign the papers. Although Clarissa was being held in Choctaw County Jail, the case was filed in Mason County, so we were still under its jurisdiction. I'm sure there will be people in the public who will make a fuss about this, but I didn't care. On the one hand, it would make Clarissa happy. On the other hand, now I would have to drive home with Clarissa, and that was a 2-hour drive. It took Sheriff Meyer's officers about 45 minutes to get Clarissa out of the Choctaw County Jail. Part of that time was spent allowing Clarissa to take a shower before her release. Even more time was spent signing paperwork and returning some of her personal belongings to her. I picked up a complete change of clothes for her, and by 1 p.m., we left Cherokee Flats and headed home. We drove in complete silence for almost an hour before either of us spoke. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Are you hungry? I asked. Clarissa just stared out the window and shook her head. Do you want to stop and get something to drink? I don't want a divorce, Patrick. I know I signed the papers, but I didn't want to. I kept both hands on the steering wheel in the 10 and 2 position and squeezed it in frustration. I took a deep breath through my nose and exhaled slowly. Clarissa, we've already talked about this. As far as I understand, it's final. She wasn't crying anymore, but tears were still streaming down her face. Well, if that's your way of torturing me, Patrick, it's working. I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed on the brakes but didn't lock the wheels, pulled over to the side of the road, and shifted the transmission into park. Are you torturing yourself, Clarissa? What about me, huh? How about you torture me? You think so, Patrick? That life with me would be torture? Torture? God, woman, you're just being stupid. I'm not talking about spending the rest of my life with you. I'm talking about all the shit that could have happened to me if your little adventure with Bud Roberts had been successful. But it didn't work out, Patrick. Do you understand? It failed because of this. Maybe it happened for a reason. Maybe we should have stayed together. At least you should learn to move on. I can't, damn it. For God's sake, Patrick, why the hell can't you? Why can't we at least try to move on together? Why is divorce the only option? I turned away from her. She was so unaware of her own insidiousness and utter madness that she now repelled me physically and emotionally. I sat there for several minutes, seeing out of the corner of my eye how she was looking at me imploringly. I tried with all my might to look away. It took everything I had not to break down, to maintain my composure and fight the urge to smash Clarissa's head against the dashboard again and again, until there was nothing left of her but her neck and a bloody stump where her thick, stupid head used to be. And then I thought of Shannon, and a familiar wave of calm washed over me, and I regained my balance in the true meaning of life. I closed my eyes, thought of her, and imagined the feel of her body, the feminine strength of her embrace, the taste of her lips, and the scent of her soap, lotions, and perfume. And then I calmed down enough to say to Clarissa what I had been trying to find the strength to say to her all this time. I can't, Clarissa, I can't go on living. To do that, Clarissa, I have to become the person I used to be. The person who trusted you and loved you so much that I never doubted you would betray me. The person who never questioned whether you loved me. What you did to me, Clarissa, has changed me at a molecular level, if such a thing is possible. Your betrayal and the plans you shared with Bud Roberts to completely crush and destroy me turned me into a person I never thought I could become. It's both amazing and tragic. To save myself, I had to learn to think as viciously as you and Bud. To save myself, I had to learn to scheme, plot, beg, borrow, and steal to get what I needed to stay out of prison. I broke the laws I swore to uphold, only to serve what I believed was the greater good. I tore apart the threads of the law to preserve the veil of justice and protect unsuspecting citizens from dangerous people who would otherwise be free to roam the streets and countryside because of what you and Bad Roberts tried to do to me. I became the man I despise, devious, manipulative, despicable, treacherous, and every other adjective and superlative you can think of to describe me. But I never did it for myself. I did it for my boys. I did it for the whole community. I did it for you. And even for Bud Roberts and Marion Lawson. There's no blood on my hands, Clarissa, but there's a hell of a lot of dirt on them now. I'm not the same Dudley Dorite I used to be. But on the other hand, Clarissa, thanks to your actions and Bud's, I'm alive. I can honestly say that there is nothing I would not do to protect my family, my friends, and the people of Mason County from harm. I faced death because of my commitment to this cause, and I came back to tell the story, both literally and figuratively. I put the car in reverse, honked the horn, pulled out onto the highway in my big SUV, and headed back to Red River Falls. So yes, Clarissa, you're right. I'm a tough nut to crack. Fighting for your life, whether it's fighting death or fighting a prison sentence that's worse than death, makes you that way. So I'm not going to thank you for destroying our family. But in a way, I'm grateful to you for making me stronger. Because I can honestly say that without you, I would never have been ready to become sheriff. With that, I fell silent, and my soon-to-be ex-wife and I rode in silence for the rest of the way. For Clarissa, it was literally a journey into the future, because now she had to decide what her future would be. Only she could determine its direction. The only thing I knew was that I would not be part of her future, at least not as her husband. When we got home, Clarissa went upstairs without saying a word and went to bed. She slept for several hours, probably from sheer exhaustion after spending the weekend in prison. The boys returned home from their youth group trip to Twin Cities and were eager to tell us all about it. Listening to their youthful chatter and excitement, I realized that I would never have arrested Clarissa if they had been home all weekend instead of 200 miles away. I was lucky and Clarissa was unlucky. Clarissa finally came downstairs around dinner time. She smiled and greeted the boys, hugging and kissing them on the head. She made a light dinner for all of us consisting of ham and cheese grilled sandwiches. And to my surprise, after dinner, Clarissa asked everyone to stay at the table. I had no idea what was in store for me, but she sat down at the table and told the boys that she and I were separating. She explained to the boys that we had serious problems and that, although we loved Nick and Jake very much, we couldn't stay together and she was going away for a while. Clarissa even said that it was her decision and asked Nick and Jake not to be angry with me because it wasn't my fault. She was a little vague when she said she didn't know how long we would be living apart, just long enough for her and me to work out some differences. I'm sure she wasn't stalling to give the boys time to get used to us not being together, and I was grateful to her for that. She also assured the boys that their home wouldn't change and that they would stay in the same house and on the same small piece of land with the horses, cows, dogs, and cats they had grown to love so much. Clarissa assured them that although the boys would not be spending time with her and me at the same time, they would still see both of us. She even asked them to help me when they could, and asked them to help her find a suitable place to live in Red River Falls so they could spend time there after school and come home to the farm in the evenings. To their credit, the boys were saddened but took the news much better than I expected. Of course, there were tears, but none of them broke down or became hysterical. Perhaps they had guessed and even expected that this would be the outcome. Nick talked about this when I was at a law enforcement conference in Minneapolis a year and a half ago. Sometimes we adults don't appreciate our children's intuition and their perception of the world around them. A few days later, Clarissa found a very nice apartment in a new townhouse complex in a gated community. The complex had its own playground and swimming pool, which the boys would definitely be visiting this summer, and it was 6 blocks from the school. Both boys attend. It didn't take Chris Hayes long to convince Clarissa to drop the assault charges against the police officer. I think Chris understood how hard this would be for all of us, and he realized that Clarissa had acted out of a sense of desperate self-preservation, not out of malice toward him or any other sheriff's deputy. Marion Lawson made the concessions I asked for, and Judge Hannah Bergen did everything she could to keep the case out of the public eye. If for some reason an investigation had been conducted, people would have remembered that something had happened, but there would have been no documents or reports to clarify exactly what. Of course, I didn't say anything to Clarissa to ensure that the divorce went smoothly. When I told Shannon about all this, she was very supportive because she knew that the finality of the impending divorce was weighing heavily on me. Not because I wanted to stay married to Clarissa, but simply because of the grief and remorse I felt over a dead and failed marriage. It was strange because now I could focus on a new life with Shannon and Bridget, which was to be reborn from the ashes of my former life with Clarissa. And deep down, I knew that my boys would get along well with Shannon and Bridget and accept them as their stepmother and stepsister. I was sure there would be conflicts and obstacles along the way, but my intuition told me that there would be many more good days than bad in our future. And in the end, I even began to hope that one day, the man who would give Clarissa the happiness I couldn't give her would come into her life. Another big surprise was my future father-in-law's announcement that his wedding gift to Shannon and me would be to pay off the mortgage on the land so that Shannon and I could focus on other things besides working to pay off the bank. It was more than I could have imagined, more than I deserved, and I was so overwhelmed by his offer that I initially refused. But Jack Sullivan reminded me that I didn't want to fall out of his good graces and that he would do anything for his daughter and granddaughter. Then he laughed, gave me a big hug, and said, "Welcome to the family." That was the end of an important chapter in my life, and the next chapter is ready to be written. All the main characters are in place. There's no need to dwell on the past. Only a bright future lies ahead. From this day forward, the only story that will matter is the one we create ourselves. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for the next video.